Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, once you get over the disappointment, and in fairness, and I said this to the players, I think, people need to be aware that, Conor had an issue before the game. We gave him an injection, we gave him some painkillers to try and get him fit, and that was my call. So ultimately, I blame myself. We wanted Conor to. Conor's been such a consistent performer for us this season. I think when you have somebody who's been so consistent and has an issue, and you want to try and give him every chance to play the game, and that's something that we did. And in hindsight, I think it wasn't fair to Conor, and it probably wasn't fair to the team. So I think that's on me. I accept responsibility for that. I think as much as Conor wanted to play, I should have said, okay, you're not quite right. And for us, it was very evident that he wasn't his normal self. So as I said to the players, there's a balance between putting yourself available for selection and then getting it right, and then equally I need to make that decision as well. So I think from that standpoint, once I take that out of the equation and I look at the first 22 minutes or 23 minutes, to go 3-0 down, it's an absolute mountain to climb. But when you look at all the shots and everything we had second half, the effort to try and get back into the game was definitely there. But like we've spoken about, you cannot give anyone a 3-goal lead and expect to get something from the game. Yes, Conor Shanosky, yeah. He got an issue with his lower back, his tailbone, and it was something we were aware of. We tried to give him some painkillers, and it was a case where we thought he was going to be okay, but unfortunately he wasn't 100%. And as I say, I don't blame Conor, I don't blame the players. That's on me, So I take responsibility for that, and that's something that I'll learn from.
There were a lot of people pointing to Kevin as maybe the weak link.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally what happens is people will always look at the first passage. I mean, there's invariably when a goal is scored, there's a domino effect. It'll start somewhere, and then it's the reaction from that. There's instances where people will look at Kevin, they'll maybe look at the other parts of the back four, and they may not see Brian on the far side. But there's a domino effect that once transition happens, it's what's the effect, how people reacted, and the knock-on from that. I think for me it's important that we sit down and we analyse what's happened, why it's happened, and make people clear of to make sure it doesn't happen again, and keep things in perspective, because we're obviously having a very good season, and it's making sure that you stay level in the good times and when you get a result like the other night. Yeah, no, we've got, for us, I think we've got a clear idea of what our starting 11 will be. We'll fly to Harrisburg in the morning, and we've worked on a couple of things. And it's like everything, you take each game as it's put in front of you. Harrisburg have certain threats that we need to try and nullify. They obviously are on the back of a very good win against Richmond. So you approach the game in the normal way and prepare for it like we always do. Treat them with a lot of respect. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we're still trying to, get to the bottom of it and make sure that it's nailed down. So again, we'll be keeping our cards close to our chest on that one too.
You mentioned the domino effect. Where, after looking at the film, do you think that defensive kind of breakdown happened?
Well, I think for us, when you try to play expansive football, it needs to be with a lot of common sense. So for us, it can't be a case of everyone is in a position to attack when the ball's on the opposite side of the field. So if you look at a couple of the goals, it's the positioning of Kevin, it's the positioning of Tarek, Conor, Burkey, the midfielders, the recovery runs. So there's a knock-on effect throughout the team that you would expect to see. Obviously, we've gone through it and spoken about it with all the players, and equally, like I say, I mean, we go through and speak about what's happened as to why we believe it's happened, try and learn from it, but equally, when you win 6 on the bounce, you don't spend so much time going through it. So there's a balance to everything that you do.
Well, the last couple of days of training, how do you think your team has responded to that game, getting back after it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in training for the last few days, so I think the reaction has been what I would expect it to be. You learn from it, and you put it to the back of your mind, and you focus on what you can fix, which is Wednesday. What's happened has happened. And I think from my point of view, we've got the second most points in both conferences. There's a hell of a lot to be positive about. I think equally as everybody wanted to get, I would say, run away when you win 6 on the bounce. It's important that people aren't allowed to be able to come in and say, oh, it's all doom and gloom because you've been beat. It's one game. It's disappointing, very disappointing to lose 4-0. but equally it's perspective, and it's making sure that you keep that balanced view, and that, I would say, balanced viewpoint with ourselves, with the players, and with everybody else. Yeah, no, I mean, we obviously pay a lot of attention to who we play. I mean, they've got some good threats, they've got decent pace. It was a fantastic win for them against Richmond. They went 3-0 up. So, yeah, it'll be a big game for us. I think if you look at their position, they're obviously trying to cement a place in the playoffs. So it's going to be a tough game for us. Yeah.
Sub more, sub differently, or
yeah. No, I mean, Wednesday will be our focus, and then you analyse the game, and then if, as the game sort of pans out, if you need to make a change, you make a change. I think for us it's more short-term focus and worry about Wednesday and the threats that we have there. And and I'd just like to touch on the supporters. Actually, when we were 3-0 down, the support was fantastic. I think from our point of view, Daniel and myself and Tabani, when you look at it and you think, okay, well, what were the positives? The real positive was the crowd reaction to being 3-0 down. They kept supporting us, they kept cheering, they were really boisterous, very passionate, which was great. And I think that definitely played an impact in the second half. I think we had 20 shots second half. So, by having 20 shots, you would expect to score, and I think on another night we may have scored. And if we had, I think it may have been game on. But equally, you don't go and give yourself a hole in the foot like we did.
Brian said there might be a case of some guys playing a little bit more instead of the team.
Yeah, no, that's something we spoke about. I think there's lots of things that we spoke about that obviously will stay in the changing room. I'm a big believer in making sure that everyone's aware of what their roles are, responsibilities, and then making sure that we align ourselves to what our goal is. So I think it's important you speak about it and then move on from it. And from us, we've spoken about it, we've dealt with it, and we've moved on. And our focus is very much on Wednesday's game.
Brian, the type of player you recognize, that sort of thing. What kind of better person?
Yeah, I mean, I think not just Brian. I mean, I think the other aspect is if you look at the average age of our group, we've got a very young group. And I know a lot of the MLS teams have players that are 20, 21. I mean, the majority of our players are, I think Adam's 28, everybody else is between, I'd say, 21, Charlie's 20 and 23. So when you've got such a young group of players, it's important that you do a lot of teaching as well, and you make them understand why certain situations can arise, and make sure that they understand what they did well to win games, and when they haven't, equally understand, well, the reason we didn't win was because of this and this. So it's a learning process as well with the group. And for us, it's been, the journey so far has been very pleasing, but like I say, there's nothing finished yet. You need to go on, you need to keep your head down, you need to drive on. So for us, it's a case of paying Harrisburg the respect that they deserve, and going out and making sure we give a good performance.
When you went out,
deep into the season, is there any thought of guys hitting the wall, maybe a mental wall, not so much a physical wall, but just the fact that the season does go so long and does kind of stretch on?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction would be no. Obviously, I've played in Europe where you play 46 league games, so it's completely different. I think for these boys, it's a case of, okay, what happened the other night has happened. Here's why we believe it's happened. Now let's focus on Wednesday and make sure that Wednesday we go out and give a good performance and give a performance more akin to how we've performed all season. I think when you get a situation like that, I mean, I think Montreal have had first half. I think they've had 4 shots and scored 3 goals. So. You can spend hours and hours and hours going over things as to why it's happened, and equally for me, it's a balanced view. We don't spend, when we won 6 on the bounce, I wasn't spending 6 hours going over every goal we scored, going, oh, this is fantastic. It's you move on to the next one, and you speak about what's happened, make sure there's an understanding of what's happened, and then move on to what you can affect, which is the next game. Yeah, no, it's something that I think you want to try and get hungry players. The younger they are, the more ability you have to be able to influence and help. And then equally, there's a balance to it. You want people in there that have good experience. So you look at Conor, you look at Matt, you look at Brian, you look at Adam. Them guys have good experience. They've played a lot of games, even though they are young. So it's a balance of getting age into the mix along with experience, and the big thing for us is coachability. It's making sure that we have players who we feel we can influence and help teach, you know, because we want them to get better as individuals and help them achieve their goals.
You talked about that a lot with stuff like the score with how their attitudes are
Yeah.
against such young guys. Do you expect to maybe have a couple that out every year?
No, because we spent so long trying to get players in. We have such a strict criteria of recruitment that, you know, I think for us, we've been able to get the players we have because we put a lot of hard work into it, and equally we've had performances now that have been really pleasing because we've worked very, very hard, and I think for us it's making sure that you don't let one bad performance affect, you know, what has been so far a very, very pleasing season. But equally, the season doesn't finish now. It finishes in September 19th, and then hopefully we'll have playoffs to be a part of. So for us, it's always perspective and focus and balance. They're the three things that we need to focus on.